Hi, my name's John Holmes and I'm the Managing Director at Advantage Creative. Welcome to this series of short films about funding for creative entrepreneurs and startups. This is part of a series of films and resources we provide for creatives, and for more details, check these out on our website. So, a little bit about us just to set the scene. Advantage Creative was set up in 2003 to manage the Advantage Creative Fund, one of the first equity investment funds to take a special focus on the creative industries. Through the Advantage Creative Fund, we've invested around about £5.5 million in 81 investments into 55 companies. And over a number of years, we've helped these creative startups really grow and build their businesses with the funding and the expertise we've been able to bring. Let's have a look at what we're going to cover in this short film. We're going to look at these topics, an overview of the different kinds of funding available. Key questions: what kind of funding is best for your business? And then, where next? So what we won't cover in these short films is earned income or grant funding. So let's make a start with the overview of different kinds of funding. People often talk about crowdfunding as a type of funding. However, it's not a type of funding, but rather an approach to achieving different kinds of funding. So crowdfunding can be broken down into 5 different kinds: reward crowdfunding, debt crowdfunding, equity crowdfunding, subscription crowdfunding, and donation crowdfunding. And we'll cover all of those in this series of films. Loan funding. Loan funding is often one of the most readily available and practical forms of funding for business. This includes informal friends and family loans, bank loans, overdrafts, and of course, peer-to-peer lending and crowdfunding. Equity funding. Equity funding is where you sell shares in your company to raise finance, Dragon's Den style. For a startup, this is often the form of angel funding, where the investor puts in a lot of expertise as well as finance to help the business grow. There are also equity crowdfunding platforms that help match companies with investors. So what kind of funding is best for you? Well, let's have a look. There are 4 fundamental questions to ask yourself and be really clear about before you go about your fundraising. These are: 1. Can I bootstrap my business? 2. What do I need funding for? 3. How much funding do I need? And 4. How and when will I repay it? Sometimes people aren't clear about what they need the funding for. For some people, winning the funding seems to be the goal. However, funding should not be considered as the goal itself. It should be considered as a means to an end. You only want to raise what funding you need to grow the commercial income in your business. So the first question is, can I bootstrap my business? All forms of commercial funding, as opposed to grant funding, are going to have a cost to you in terms of time and energy to raise the funds, and also in terms of paying back the loans or giving a return on investment to your investors. So you've really got to ask yourself, is this really necessary? Is this going to be the best return on the investment of the time and energy I have to put in? Can I bootstrap my business? So what do I mean by bootstrapping? Well, bootstrapping is building a company from the ground up with nothing but personal savings and reinvesting the income you earn in your business. Making a good cash flow forecast should tell you whether you can raise enough income in your business to reinvest and achieve what you want to, and when, or whether you have to go out and raise additional funds. If you're new to cash flow, then take a look at the Nesta Creative Enterprise Toolkit. It explains this really well. So, you've looked at your business plan, your cash flow forecast, there's something you want to invest in to help you grow your business, and you can't raise this finance from your own revenues. So your next question is, what do I need the funding for? Well, this generally falls into these categories. 1. Equipment, tools, resources. You might need tools or software or other equipment to develop or ramp up the growth in your business. In this instance, you need to be quite sure that investing in this is going to generate the additional sales or revenue that you hope. You need to do your customer research and be sure you'll generate these additional sales. You then need to build this in to your cash flow forecast to help you understand what you can pay back and when. Loan funding tends to be good for this kind of need. In principle, if an injection of money now can help you earn more money later, then that's a good formula for loan funding. So another thing is you might want to launch a new product or design. You might have some quite high initial costs for this. You might have your research and development, your prototyping, your tooling, an initial production run. All of these can be quite high costs, and these come at a cost to you. So in this instance, product crowdfunding can be a really good tool to earn money here, but loan funding or even angel funding might suit your needs as well. So here's another area to meet your overheads or your salary. If you need to invest a lot of time in developing your business, and this might include employing staff or contractors, before you can earn your income, your business needs startup capital. So most entrepreneurs fund their startup through a combination of bootstrapping and angel or equity funding. So your next question is, how much funding do I need? Well, if you need just a small amount of funding, let's say up to £5,000 as working capital to help smooth the cash flow, and if it's just short term, then the quickest and easiest way to secure funding will be an overdraft or a credit card. Keep in mind here, a personal overdraft is much easier to secure than a business bank overdraft. And you can use a personal credit card for any short-term borrowing. If you want to raise up to around £5,000 to start up a new business, then there are some startup loans and even grants out there, and we'll look at those in the loan funding section. If you need more funding than this, let's say in the tens of thousands of pounds over a longer period, then you should think carefully about the options, and it's worth investing the time and energy needed to secure that funding. So the next question you've got to pose is, how and when will I repay this? If you're raising loan funding, you'll need to plan how and when you're going to repay it. You might need to make a 3 or a 5-year business plan, estimate your income from sales, estimate your costs, and work out how much you can afford to repay and when. If you're raising equity funding, you need to have a really clear strategy about how you'll grow the company in the medium to long term. You need to be clear with your investors how and when they're going to cash in on their investment. If you're doing a crowdfunding campaign, you're committing to providing a product or a service to your customers at some point in the future. You need to have a really clear plan in place about how and when you're going to deliver on your promises. We'll cover this in more detail when we look at crowdfunding. So let's recap. So far, we've covered these topics: overview of the different kinds of funding available, and key questions. What kind of funding is best for you? Now I've given you the overview, you can dip into the next series of films for those that are most relevant for you. Here's a short introduction to the next few films. Introduction to crowdfunding. There's a common set of fundamental principles to understand in managing a successful crowdfunding campaign. So I'm going to cover these in one crowdfunding film. Reward crowdfunding. In this film, I'll look at the specific aspects of reward crowdfunding, with top tips for success based on case studies and interviews I've done with people who've been there and done that. Loan funding. In this film, I'll go into more detail on all kinds of loan funding, how to understand it, and if and when it's right for you and your business. Equity funding. This film will give you a deeper understanding of the principles of equity funding, also called angel funding, with top tips for equity crowdfunding campaigns. Subscriber funding. I'm going to cover how subscription income can be developed for your business, and we're going to look at a platform that's very like a crowdfunding platform there. And donation funding. I'll give you an overview of how you can develop donations for good causes, and that can work for you if you're an individual, a collective, or a not-for-profit. Thanks for watching.